Player 1, choose. Bulls. Finish him! Fatality. Win.
Epic dark fantasy done right. 16 factions.
Player 1, choose. Wave 1.
Trusting people is really hard, especially when your past affects the way you view the people around you. When I was really young, my mom had a lot of friends, and we would go out to parties together. Sometimes I would even spend the night over with them. But this one family in particular, I'll never forget, ruined my life for good. I was always a very social person, and for me, talking to anyone and everyone somehow made the day better. I loved talking to people because I felt being able to let another person express themselves to me made me feel great. But little did I know, some people don't need to be bothered, and they don't need to be talked to. During one of my mom's social gatherings, I decided to spend the night out with my best friend's house. We had been friends for almost 5 years straight, and I was already 9 years old. Both of our parents had known each other since high school, and they had stayed in touch the whole time. When they were both pregnant, we were automatically destined to one day become friends. As we were the same age, we had a lot in common. We shared everything, and we did everything together. It was as if we were inseparable. So that day, I asked my mom if I could spend the night at her house, and my mom of course said yes, since she already knew her parents, or should I say, her mom. You see, her dad was out of the picture for a really long time, and no one except for my best friend's mom knew where he was. This one particular night, he came back. I never asked where he was because I thought it was rude to ask where her dad had been her entire life. Little did I know, he had been in prison since before my best friend was even born. We had a great time before bedtime. We had ice cream, we had popcorn, and we watched a movie. I had a really bad sugar rush from all of the junk food I ate, and it gave me a really bad headache. Her mom had left to go get some water because we had spilt it all over the kitchen while playing around, so that meant we were left alone with my best friend's dad. My best friend went to go shower, and after showering, she went straight to bed in her mom's room. This left me all alone with a really bad headache in her room. It got so bad, I went to ask her dad if I could have some aspirin. I always knew her mom had taken aspirin when she had a really bad headache, so I asked if I could have one. He agreed and gave them to me, but it didn't really look like what I'd seen before. I didn't think anything of it, took the pill, drank whatever water was left, and then went straight for the bed. I went to lie down, and in around 30 minutes, I felt completely different. Everything seemed blurry, and I couldn't move my body. It's as if I had been electrocuted. I felt paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't even move my head. When I blinked, it was as if I couldn't open my eyes again. Time moved so slowly, and I didn't know how I had even gotten this way. I looked around with my eyes, but I couldn't move my head. My neck was so stiff, I felt it to my spine. I was in a really my eyes, but I couldn't move my head. My neck was so stiff, I felt it to my spine. I was in a really uncomfortable position before I went to sleep, and before I knew it, I was stuck that way until around 2 a.m. Time continued to tick by, second by second, minute by minute. I watched as her mom came home and went to bed, but was unable to say anything to her. Then I saw a really bright light come from down the hallway. I thought it was my best friend. I thought I could try and scream for help and ask her to help me get out of this position. But it wasn't her. She was still upstairs in her mom's room with her mom. So I was alone, downstairs, with her dad. I didn't think anything was suspicious until he came into the room. I thought he was going to help me, but he only made things worse. He turned off all the lights in the rest of the house and had a flashlight that stung my eyes when he turned it on. I could barely blink, so I definitely couldn't ask for help. You know what the worst part was? It was that I didn't say anything until I was around 13 years old. By the time I told my parents, it was already too late. My best friend's dad had left the state, and there was nothing I could do about it anymore. I had several nightmares as the years went on, and I acted out like a really bad headache every single day, just because I didn't know how to cope that one night. I decided I had to tell my parents, and when I did, I felt like such a heavy load was lifted from my shoulders. The only people I told are the people that I know I could trust, but as time passed, I knew it was something that needed to be told. I hope my story will let people know that is not something to keep quiet about. You should definitely tell an adult or someone who could help you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ken, and I am the unluckiest person in the world. As a kid, I almost died twice because of my relatives. I come from a broken home. I only had my mom and my older sister Sam. We have a large age gap, 11 years, so I can't say we're very close. We don't have a dad. I suspect he just ran away from my mom. Sam did the same thing eventually. Mom is a very complicated person. She's extremely strict, and she only knows one method of parenting: physical punishments. She can get mad from the smallest things. For example, just because the shoes aren't put properly in the hallway. From the outside, our family looks fine, but it's not easy to live in such an environment. It was harder for my sister than for me. I was smaller, weaker, and hitting me too hard could have consequences. So poor Sam suffered from it a lot more. She once left the bathroom door not fully closed, and when I accidentally came in, I was terrified with what I saw. Her whole back was covered with scars and bruises. And with all that, my sister managed to cover for me. When I messed up, she always took the blame and suffered for both of us. We had nowhere to go, because from the outside, everything looked fine. Our mom worked as an accountant in some firm with connections. If we had gone somewhere to talk about this, they would have rejected us. Sam tried once, but they didn't even let her talk. The same night, Mom explained to her why we shouldn't do this. When I went to school, Sam got married and vanished. She just one time came to my room at night, kissed me goodbye, and in the morning she disappeared with all of her stuff. Mom cried so hard. I jumped out the window, though we lived on the second floor, used pipes to climb down, and ran into the street, because she could just as easily have killed me without even noticing it. I couldn't blame Sam. I'd run away too, but I had nowhere to go. I was only 7. So Mom started putting all of her parental anger onto me. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. You could say that I shouldn't have messed up, but trust me, anything could become a reason for her. My grades were bad, and it's not surprising. Instead of doing homework, I sat as quietly as I could, and I was afraid to leave the room or to make noise. As I learned from books later, I only developed survival skills, and I couldn't add anything else to them. The saddest thing was trying to keep the place clean and tidy. She expected a 7-year-old to maintain everything in a perfect order, just like in the army. Of course, I would miss some little things from time to time. I could forget to put a dirty plate in the sink, and it already was an excuse for her to get super mad. If she hated kids so much, why did she have 2 of them? The only happy days were when Sam used to take me away from home. She got herself a decent life, and she got prettier after her escape. Her husband turned out to be a nice man. He helped her with money, and she opened her own small business, a flower shop. Of course, she had to do everything and maintain the place all by herself, but the money was stable, and she could rely on it. Sam looked for ways to take me away from Mom. She couldn't just steal me to live with her. Mom had connections. So Sam would have been put in jail or just beaten up again. She talked to lawyers and asked for help from her husband, but so far it had no results. In addition, her mother-in-law was not great, and they lived together. So besides working and trying to save me, she was saving money to buy her own apartment. But when we did meet, it was just amazing. She used to take me to amusement parks and gave me treats and let me do whatever I wanted. If not for these short but happy meetings, I would have definitely gone crazy from the constant tension. And in the end, she would always put a few bills in my pocket so I could buy something tasty at school. Mom didn't let us starve, but she didn't give us any pocket money either. She thought we didn't deserve to deal with money on our own. And when I was at school, I wanted so much to buy myself a new toy, a cookie, or a fancy pencil box. If not for Sam's help, I wouldn't be able to afford any little thing you can't help but want when you're a kid. Everything changed suddenly. It's bad to be happy when someone's ill, but Sam and I were on top of the world. When I was 14 years old, Mom was taken to the hospital for an emergency operation. I don't know what the problem was. Sam says it was a kind of women's operation. She added it would take a long time, and we had a chance to get in touch with some social services. Sam was allowed to take me with her as the only adult relative. We celebrated it with balloons and lemonade, and I moved into their apartment. Her husband was not against it. He worked as a sort of sea captain, so he didn't spend much time at home anyway. He could go sailing and return only after 2 months. The least pleasant thing was living with her mother-in-law. She was strict as a grandma, but after Mom, I could easily bear her hissing because it was not followed by hitting. I continued going to school. I even got better at studying, and I was praised a couple times. And Sam worked while her husband was away. By this time, she already had 3 shops and some staff. She didn't give up on her dream about the apartment, but she decided to postpone it a bit and expand the business first. Sam worked like a dog and showed up at home only to sleep and to shower. I was already quite independent, so she wasn't worried about me. On the contrary, sometimes I cooked for the whole family and made her eat because she was always so weak and tired. With all that, I have no idea how Sam managed to get pregnant and give birth to a little girl. A small, but a very loud one. I looked after her during the nights so that Sam could get some rest. Sam kept on working, only now she took her daughter with her. But the mother-in-law clearly did not like what her apartment was turning into. Maybe she didn't like Sam specifically, but she couldn't get to her. I, on the other hand, was always around. She never hit me. She almost never spoke to me. This woman went further. She put a lock on the fridge and hid the key. By that time, Sam was barely ever home, so she didn't see it. I didn't want to complain, so I ate at the school cafeteria. It was not enough, though. Plus, I didn't want to disturb Sam as she was working like crazy in her business and raising a kid at the same time. Once, my sister, her husband, and their kid left for another city for almost a month. I was left alone with her mother-in-law. Sam gave me some money just in case, but I ran out of it quickly. The mother-in-law went even further. She changed the locks on the door and wouldn't let me in. I had 3 options. Returning to Mom, I hadn't spoken to her for a year already, reaching out to Sam in the middle of her vacation, which had seemed embarrassing to do that, or living on the streets. I chose the last option. I started living in the streets. It was already spring, so I could spend nights on a park bench. At school,